Welcome to another episode of Ommade Kitchen. I'm your host, Deepa, and today we are going to be preparing a delicious spinach pesto sauce. And this is in honor of my cousin Nikita and my mom, who both love pesto. Didn't know they loved it as much as they did until they had mine, of course. I love traditional pesto with the basil and pine nuts and garlic. And I always think to myself, how can I eat more greens? So this is my version with spinach and arugula, and I love incorporating different sources of protein. So we're gonna be using walnuts and sunflower seeds that are sprouted for some little extra protein and a little extra crunch. Let's go. So I'm gonna be using a food processor because I want my pesto to be a little bit chunky, but you can use a blender or whatever tool you have. In the olden days, they used to use a mortar and pestle to have that really stone ground, that fresh pesto feel. So in our food processing cup, we're gonna combine. I have a cup of organic walnuts here. And if you can't do walnuts, you could substitute almonds or any other nut. If you put cashews in here, it will become a little bit more creamy. I have about a little more than a quarter cup, but a little bit less than half a cup of sunflower seeds. And I'm gonna put almost all of them in, but just save a little bit for the topping. And then we're gonna have arugula. And this just happens to be the greens that I have in my house. So we're just gonna be hacking this guy. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say this was probably about 4 to 5 good handfuls. And before I add the spinach in here, I'm going to just trim the edges off of 4 to 5 fresh garlic cloves, 2 lemons, and I have an extra half one if we need it. The fresh lemon juice will help keep the green color of the arugula and the spinach. Adds a nice bright flavor to the pesto. I'm gonna add a little oregano, which isn't traditional, but I love the flavor of it. I would say I added maybe about half a teaspoon. I do wanna add a little bit of heat to this, so I'm gonna add some crushed red pepper, and I'm gonna add actually a whole teaspoon of crushed red pepper. And remember, you might want a little bit more if you like spicy, or you might want a little less if you don't like spicy. I'm gonna add some onion powder. I'm gonna add about half of a tablespoon. And even though we added that fresh garlic, I wanna add, let's say about a teaspoon of garlic granules, maybe half a teaspoon, let's say, of garlic granules. You can always add more. And we're ready to move over to the food processor base. We have the arugula, the nuts, the sunflower seeds, the fresh garlic, and all the spices and lemon juice in the food processor already. We're gonna add the spinach at the end. But while I was prepping the pesto sauce, I have some water that's been boiling, and I have some carrots that I've been roasting because we're gonna serve this pesto with a little bit of gluten-free vegan gnocchi and some roasted carrots. So, I'm gonna take the fresh spinach and jam it in to the top. My poor little food processor is gonna be working for it. And we're probably gonna be adding more, so I'm just gonna put this to the side. Most pestos are oil-based. They usually are based with olive oil. I'm gonna be using grapeseed oil as my main oil, as I can't really eat olive oil very often. And rather than making it just very heavy and oil-based, normally I would mix oil and a little bit of veggie broth, just to make it a little bit of a lighter pesto, but I'm out of veggie broth today, so added a little bit of extra spices, and I'm just gonna be using plain old water. So just gonna add a little bit of water, just enough to get the food processor going. And I'm just gonna pulse it a couple times to get these leaves processed so that I can start adding a little bit of oil and some more spinach. So while the food processor is processing, we're gonna add the grapeseed oil very gently from the chute, just enough to start seeing it come together into a sauce. That was about 3/4 of a cup grapeseed oil, and now I'm gonna check and see how much spinach we can add, and probably add a little more water, a little more oil. We're gonna add plenty of fresh ground black pepper and some fresh pink salt. and give it just a quick little blend. So now that the pesto is ready, I have my pasta water boiling, and I have this beautiful farmer's market that has an Italian stand that they ship and import all kinds of ingredients and beautiful things from Italy. And they carry a vegan, gluten-free gnocchi that is phenomenal. So I'm gonna be using that. If you're interested in learning how to make gnocchi from scratch, let me know, and that will definitely be a future video. I have my salted pasta water, and I'm just gonna drop the gnocchi in. With gnocchi, if you put it in the water, it will sink to the bottom, and then when it's ready to be served, it will pop right up to the top. Before I started making the pesto, I had chopped up some carrots and put them in the oven at 375 for about 25 minutes. And they're nice and roasted and beautiful, and they're absolutely delicious with pesto. So pesto is so versatile. I'm gonna be serving it with the gnocchi and the roasted carrots, but pesto is great with all kinds of pasta, with rices, with pretty much any vegetable that you can think of. I have not met a single vegetable that doesn't pair great with pesto. Just adjust your pesto recipe to reflect the flavors that you're trying to bring out in the vegetable dish. The gnocchi is floating at the top, which means that it is ready to go. We want a little bit of the pasta water to come with us because it's gonna allow the sauce to really bind to the pasta. So we have our hot gnocchi. I'm gonna scoop some of this delicious, beautiful pesto. So when you have extra pesto left over, this is the key way to store it and still keep it this beautiful, rich green color. You wanna make sure you leave a little room at the top of the jar and just put a slight layer, so just so it covers the whole top layer of some of the grapeseed oil or olive oil or whatever your oil of choice is. What that will do is it will create a barrier to help prevent the greens from becoming oxidized and keeping your pesto this beautiful heart-centered green. So I have my gnocchi, my pesto, my carrots, and I love the combination of pesto and a little bit of good balsamic. So I'm gonna actually take mine another level up. Just add a little bit of balsamic on top of the dish. And time to dig in. My mom and my cousin are gonna be a little jealous right now. I love the little bit of crunch that the carrots have. You get that garlicky green goodness and the light fluffiness of the gnocchi. This is a winning combination. And bonus is, this sauce can be used for so many different dishes. This is definitely one for your arsenal. Don't forget, always, the secret ingredient is love. Enjoy.